Do that again. That was a bit of an error there. My computer's playing up.
You always use that active red line defending.
I think it's like
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, bro. Come on. Are we live? Of course we're live. Sorry for the technical difficulties, people. You know, it happens, man. Hope everyone's doing well and safe when you're listening to this. I've got a very special guest, Tom Young. Tom, how you doing, man? Appreciative of you sharing your time with me.
Absolutely no worries. Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm excited to have a chat. It's should be good.
Of course, man. Love to hear that. Likewise. And obviously, because, you know, logically, you know, you're obviously a City boy, it makes sense to pick your brains on Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus and just a couple of other bits and pieces. I know you're pressed for time, so I'm going to go straight into it, bro. Before we get on to the thick of it, what do you make of City's business this season? Because I know City always talks of a team of printing money, being backed by an oil state and things like that. I personally think you lot are doing a bit of great business. You've sold a number of players for good money, bunch of young players to go, probably some more outgoings. What do you make of your transfer activity so far?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one. Obviously, City are well renowned for spending lots of money, bringing in lots of players, and we've done that this summer. We brought in Haaland is, of course, the signing of the summer. As far as exciting signings go, I think everybody's really interested to see how he does in the Premier League. Julian Alvarez coming in as well, I think it's a great addition for the money we spent on him. I think he'll do well. But I think what we've done well this summer, which we haven't done so much in the past, is we've sold well as well. So at the minute, I think we're positive in our net spend. We've brought in more in terms of money that we've made on sales and we've spent, which is great. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one though. It's quite a big change at City. I think it's one of the biggest changes I've seen in terms of the way that we're going to play football. We've lost our two quickest wingers in our forwards in Sterling and Jesus are both gone. Obviously, Jesus to yourself and Sterling over to Chelsea. So we brought in a striker, which we've not had for 2 seasons. We've got Calvin Phillips coming in, where we play the two holding midfielders role, that double pivot that we played in the past, but haven't seen in a couple of years. So for City, it's a big change this summer with the people we've seen come in. So it'll be interesting to see how we go next season because we're going to be playing football or a different style of football. Obviously, it'll still be very possession heavy, and the way Guardiola plays won't change in that regard. But we're bringing in players that maybe are a little bit different to what we've seen in the past couple of years. So I'm very excited, though. I think I said on my Twitter the other day, I think this is the most excited I've been ahead of the start of the season in a long time. It's Erling Haaland is just that wow factor that we've never had a player. We've signed a lot of good players in it over the past few years whilst we've had the investment, but this is the first time I think City have signed a superstar. As in, I think it's the first time in a while that the Premier League has had a superstar come over that was wanted by La Liga, by Bundesliga.
Everyone in it, yeah.
Everybody wanted him, and the first time the Premier League have secured a player of the caliber of Erling Haaland. So it's exciting, but I think the business has been good. And yeah, I think for City, I think we're in a good position to have another good season, hopefully.
I mean, as a neutral looking at City, I just have this feeling. I don't know what you're going to do beyond this, but surely, I mean, it's an understatement to say Pep has a plan, but surely there's a plan because you kind of touched on it. You lost your quickest wingers. When I look at Zinchenko, Jesus, I think very few teams do what City do, and you recognize that you need a squad. There's, you know, different flavors of the month, and I feel, you know, Zinchenko and Jesus might not start every week, but they're two valued squad members, and you couple in a number of other outgoings. Surely there's something being planned. Surely there's another side. Surely there's something. There's an ace in the pack. Surely.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because, like you say, Guardiola's far too intelligent as a manager to not know what he's doing. Of course, he's got a plan. He knows what he's doing with this squad next season. I think in an ideal world, we wouldn't have lost both Sterling and Jesus in the same window. I think the intention, from what I gather, was that Sterling would stay. He didn't want to stay, and Guardiola's always had the mindset that he won't keep players who don't want to be at the club.
I really admire that.
Yeah, if Sterling said he wants to go and he wants to go, we let him go. So I think if the right player became available towards the end of the summer, that maybe a forward, I think there was tentative links with Neymar, which never really materialised, and I don't think there was ever any substance in that. But if the right player became available, I wouldn't be surprised to see City go and do some more business. But I think it would take a big name to become available for City to do that. I think the sales that we've made this summer are sort of putting us in a good position to then go and maybe buy a Jude Bellingham or someone similar next summer when someone like that becomes available. But yeah, if the right player becomes available, I wouldn't be surprised to see us dip in the market a little bit more. But like I say, I don't think we'll go out and sign someone just as a squad rotation player now. I think the next signing we make will be someone that, if it's in like a forward role, I think it's someone who would come in and be sort of a guaranteed starter. And I don't really think there's that many players available that fit that mantra at the moment.
Like you said, obviously you need squad players and there's exceptions to the rule. But when you look at City, if you're not bringing in people that are game changers, potentially better than the quality players you have already, there isn't a point. I love my South American players. And what do you make of Julian Alvarez? And like you said, Haaland, he's the flavour of the month. He's the signing of the summer. But I think Julian Alvarez, from what I've seen, and I'm not watching City's pre-season and planning, but he just, from what you can see available to you before he signed for City and what he's doing so far, seems like he's impressed in pre-season. And I don't want to say he's like a mini Aguero, but there are similarities. He looks like he lives and breathes goals. He's got a mentality. What do you make of him? Because you lot could have some great, you're always going to have great attackers, but two great strikers. It must be nice.
Yeah, it's like I say, we've gone 2 seasons without an out-and-out striker, and now we've got 2 of the best young strikers that are available at our disposal, which is fantastic. And I won't sit here and say that I've watched loads of Julian Alvarez at River Plate, because I'm not, because I don't watch that an awful lot of South American football.
Yeah.
However, from what I've seen, from what I understand of him, from what we've seen in the little glimpses we've had of him in pre-season, he looks like a very hard-working forward, someone who's going to chase down every ball. He's got bags of energy, and he's got an eye for goal as well. And I expect that we'll see him play more on the right-hand side this season. He kind of mixes between a right wing and striker role when he was at River Plate. And I think with Haaland coming in, I'd be surprised if Haaland doesn't start the bulk of the games. I think we may see Alvarez through the middle in sort of the early rounds of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, maybe some Champions League group stage games as well. But I think that versatility is something that Pep loves in his forwards. We've seen it with Jesus. We've seen it with Sterling. Phil Foden can play on the left or the right. Players who have got that ability to play in numerous roles across the front three. And Alvarez fits that perfectly. And for the money we paid for him, I think we got him at the perfect time. I think if we'd have waited 6 months, there would have been far more competition for his signature. We've got in there just before everyone realised quite how good he was. So, yeah, I think he'll have more minutes maybe than he was expecting this season with Sterling going as well. Yeah. So, and I think that's part of the reason why City were happy for Sterling to go. Like I said before, Pep wouldn't have kept him if he didn't want to stay anyway. But with Cole Palmer, who's very highly thought of at City, and Julian Alvarez obviously coming in, we've got 2 players there who Pep has got the trust in to take on more minutes this season. So I think Alvarez could be a surprise for a few. I think for a lot of people, I'm not sure they're aware of quite how good Julian Alvarez is.
I agree.
I think he could hit the ground running. He's not had a massive off season or any off season really, with the Argentinian league going on a little bit longer than obviously the European leagues. And he came midway through their season as well. So whether or not he gets a bit of a rest sort of in the early couple of weeks of the season, just to give him that rest that he needs rather than risk blowing him out sort of further down the line, I'm not entirely sure how Pep's going to manage his minutes. But I do think we'll see enough of Alvarez this season for him to make an impression. And I think he's got the ability and sort of the mindset to really take those opportunities that come his way.
Yeah, man. And obviously, he's not quite South American, but he's a great player in his own right. What do you make of Haaland? Because obviously, once you get past the euphoria and the guy's been signed and the excitement, and you start to break down how he's going to fit into the City team, where do you see him? Like, it sounds stupid, but do you think he could score goals? I think he's going to cook, man. That left-hand channel, tap-ins, he's going to have Grealish and everyone supplying service for him. How do you think he'll do? Because obviously, a lot of football fans, mostly Premier League fans like ourselves, when you look at Haaland, it's almost like he's superhuman because we're not watching them week in, week out. You are going to see, what he's good at, what he's bad at, bits of form. And as great as he is, he's still a young player. So what do you think of his arrival? Because I think a number of City players have spoken. He needs time to adapt, etc.
Yeah, I think this is what people forget is how young Haaland is. He only just turned 22 a few days ago.
The baby, really.
Yeah, exactly. And he's still at a stage in his career where he's still going to develop. He's still, like, on a physical front, he's still growing. He's already an absolute unit, but he's still developing as a human. So, yeah, I think the expectation, there's a lot of expectation on Haaland to basically run the Premier League next year and win the Golden Boot.
Score a million goals, yeah.
And it makes sense why them expectations are there, because we've seen what he's capable of. He scored bags of goals when he was at Salzburg. He scored bags of goals at Dortmund. Everywhere he's been, same with Norway. He is just an out-and-out goal scorer. And like you've alluded to there, we saw it against Bayern Munich the other day. Grealish getting down the left flank, puts the ball in, he taps it in the 6-yard box. And that's what we can expect a lot of from Haaland this year, is that he will just be, he's got that predatory instinct in front of goal. He knows where the goal is. He knows how to score goals. And that, in some sense, even though City score a lot of goals and obviously won the league last year without a striker, more so in the Champions League, that's what City have lacked, is a player who is just an out-and-out goal scorer, and that's exactly what Haaland
can
is.
You just score a goal, yeah.
Yeah. But what people as well need to think about is the way City play and the way Dortmund play are polar opposites. Dortmund play a lot of sprinting, high-intensity sort of quick counter-attacking football, and whereas City are obviously very methodical in that they just slow build-up play and just right place, right time. And that is another part of the game that Haaland's going to have to adapt and is going to have to learn at City, is that he's not going to... People talk about his injury record, which obviously on the face of it isn't ideal. But what I think with Haaland...
Sorry to cut you. What do you... Because again, I that's something I wouldn't have said in relation to Haaland. That's obviously something where you're clued up when you support things. What is this around injury records and things?
He's had a few... Last season more so than his first season at Dortmund. He had a few sort of niggly injuries where he was out for sort of 2 or 3 games here and then 2 or 3 games there across the course of the season. And people are saying that, oh, well, he gets injured a lot. But what I've said, what I think will help him at City is he's not going to have to break into that high intensity sort of levels of his game as often at City, because all he's got to do really, I mean, he will, I'm not saying he's never going to have to run across 90 minutes, but it's more about his mental side of the game, his positioning. If he can find the right spaces and he can sprint 10 yards from the edge of the box to get in the 6-yard box and tap it in, then that's all he's going to really need to do. There's not going to be a great expectation for him to drop really deep and collect the ball, because we've got players who can do that. So if he can adapt his game by where he's just got to get that positional game right, hang on the last man, get them runs in behind, or drop off from when someone's coming in from the flanks, drop off onto the penalty spot and tuck the ball away. And that's all he's got to do, really. So I think that'll help him in... I don't think his injury record's as bad as people would lead you to believe, but I think that will help him in that he's not going to have to do the high-intensity stuff as much at City. In terms of expectations, I really don't know what to expect. I think it's quite an exciting one, because he's capable of scoring 30 goals in the Premier League, but equally, like we've already said, he's a young lad. He's got to develop his game. He's got to learn the way City play. On a personal front, I'd be happy if Haaland got 20 goals all competitions next season in his first year. I think that would be a successful season. But again, people will be wanting him to fail. Other fans of rival teams will be wanting Haaland to come in and underperform. But I think his mentality is incredible. From what you gather, he knows how good he is, and he knows he's capable of being the best player in the Premier League. And I think that mentality will help him. He will go through tough patches. He'll go a couple of weeks. He'll go 2-3 games without scoring, and people will be going, "Oh, has Haaland got it? Is he cut out for the Prem? Is he, you know what I mean?" But
typical.
I think if we manage his game time right, if he scores 20 goals all comps this season, I think that'll be a successful first season for him.
I think he'll be good, man. I think what I'm interested to see is, I always say Pep is like the university of football. I'm an Arsenal fan, so I saw it with Thierry Henry, and there's many players, and I look at Grealish at Villa, at Villa, respectfully, he was a big fish in a small pond. Things that he was doing at Villa, they praised him for. They might not praise you for at City, and Pep might not want that. So I think this is the first mature move for Haaland. Like you alluded to, there's a degree of unfair expectations, but let's just ban that as expectation. It's not really a wow, you're such a young player, can you deliver? I think he's going to relearn football. I think, it's interesting to see City, because I think Haaland's going to play a lot, but there could be games like a big game where everyone has him down to start and no strikers start, such as Pep. He's amazing in that. He's very amazing in that. So I'm keen to see. Focusing on same recruits from City, but also a different position. It seems like you lot are moving closer to getting Cucurella. What would you make of that potentially?
Yeah, I think Cucurella would be a smart signing for City. I think it's obviously, it looked like it was going to happen. At the minute, it's kind of, there's a bit of a caught at a crossroads between Brighton's valuation and City's valuation of him. So I do still think it's more likely it happens than it doesn't. From what I understand, it is more likely to happen. But I think he'd be a smart signing. He was very good for Brighton last year. Brighton's best player last year.
Very.
He's got the ability to play at centre half as well, which is handy at City as well as at left back.
I didn't know that. That's a good look. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've lost Zinchenko obviously to you guys. We've only got one senior left back in Cancelo, who is more of a right back. As he's trade, he plays left back, but he is a right back. Joshua Wilson-Esbrand, the young left back, is very good, very highly rated by Pep as well. So he'll get minutes next year. But I think getting Cucurella in, I think what I've said about Cucurella is particularly for Champions League sort of them knockout games. As much as I love Cancelo and he's an incredible footballer, Cucurella is in my opinion, is a better defender than Cancelo.
Yeah.
So when you get to those games where you've got like Real Madrid in the semi-finals last year, and you've got Vinicius down the right, I would sooner have Cucurella, who's defensively sound,
More of a left back,
playing
right?
at left back, just a more traditional left back who can defend those issues, rather than someone like a Cancelo, who is a fantastic footballer and one of the most important players in City's team in the way that Pep plays. But when you need sort of someone who can just defend and do that defensive job as well as he can do, I think Cucurella is the player for that, to sort of fit that role. He's also he's young, he's Spanish. Pep will mould him into a better footballer. He's already a very good footballer, but we know what Pep's like, his ability to mould players into, or create players into, a new version of themselves, by where they can play with the ball at their feet, they can drop into the midfield like we do with our fullbacks. So yeah, Cucurella, I think for City would be a good signing. I think we need, as good as Wilson Esbrand is, he's still young. I think he'll get minutes next year.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But we need, the last thing we want is to not sign a replacement for Zinchenko. Cancelo goes and does his ACL in the first couple of weeks of the season, and we're left with just a young academy lad as our only left back option. So yeah, I think Cucurella is an important signing for City. If not Cucurella, I do think we need another left back in. I hope it is Cucurella that comes in. I think it will be. I think he'll do well. I think he'd be a smart signing.
I mean, clearly, you've brought in two strikers. We've touched on Calvin Phillips. We've just touched on Cucurella. Is there any other areas as a City fan, if you would look to address? Because it seems like the team's more or less perfect. How do you improve that? Better question for you than me, mate.
Yeah, I think at the minute, we are, if the squad stays as it is now, I'd be happy to enter the season with the squad as it is. I think the only time where I'd see we need to go out and buy someone is if somehow Barcelona managed to find 100 million quid to buy Bernardo Silva.
Pretty easy, judging by their standards.
I don't know how that would happen, but if it did, if we lost Bernardo Silva, I think we need a new sort of creative holding midfielder to fill that void. But as the squad stands now, if we get a left back in, I think we're ready to go for the season, really. But yeah, like I said earlier, if the right name became available, I wouldn't be surprised if City went after someone. But I don't think there's necessarily the desire at City to go out and sign anyone else apart from a left back. I think Pep's happy with his squad, and I think the squad is at a position. I think the squad is at a position now where we are ready to go into the season, and I think we're ready to challenge again, hopefully on all four fronts, and try and make a charge at everything that we go after.
Amen. Now, obviously, focusing on departures and kind of circling back, yeah. What did you make when you saw, obviously, Zinchenko's basically left last week, but particularly him, but more focus on Raheem Sterling and Jesus? What was going through your head when these departures were announced or they happened?
Yeah, I think Jesus we expected. I think it was kind of known from the latter stage of the last season that Jesus wanted to leave City and get sort of, with Haaland coming in, he wanted that striker role, and he wasn't going to get that striker role at City. I think his move to Arsenal is the perfect move for all parties. I think Jesus wanted to stay in the Premier League. He knows Arteta. Arsenal play a similar way to the way that City play. Obviously, you've got a bunch of Brazilians there that probably made him feel right at home as soon as he got there. And he's shown already in his early stages at Arsenal in pre-season, from what I've seen of him, that he's fit right into Arsenal. And I think he's a player that, I think if you asked 100 City fans if they'd rather have kept him or lost him, I think 99 had told you they'd rather have kept him. But I think it was the right move for him in his career. He's at the age he's at. Obviously, there's a World Cup coming up. He's going to want to be Brazil's first choice striker in the World Cup. There's so many different elements to throw into it. And I'd have loved to have kept him. He was a player who his mentality was incredible. He's a player who always never stopped running, never stopped chasing down any lost cause. Anyone else would just leave and let it run through to the fullback. Jesus was like little whippet after it all the time. He always played well in the big games as well. He tends to turn up against Liverpool more than anyone else, which is fantastic.
And we need that. We can't even score against Liverpool, mate.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he scores plenty of goals for you against Liverpool next year. But yeah, I think he's a player that we'd rather have kept, but we understood why he wanted to move on, and a player that I think will do very well for Arsenal. Hopefully he has 36 really good games and 2 stinks against City, and then I'll be happy with that. That'll be fine with me.
Fair enough.
Sterling was a different one in the fact that there was no real belief he was going to leave, and then all of a sudden it happened quite quickly that he did want to go. I think he left on a bit of a sour note in that when Zinchenko and Jesus both left, he did like interviews with the club.
Yeah.
Thank the fans, and there was nothing came out from Sterling. There's a video that came out of him refusing to sign a City shirt on a pre-season tour as well, which I thought was a bit I mean, you've just left the club. This American fan might never have had the opportunity to see you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think Sterling's a weird one. On a footballing front, again, he's a player I would rather have kept. I think he's a player that I said he's always had his best years in his career have been when he's had an out-and-out striker next to him. You look at him at Liverpool with Suarez, at City with Aguero, and then with Kane for England. He always performs better when his role is just stick to the wing, get the balls into the box. Whereas his last couple of years at City haven't been quite as good, but he's been mixed about from the left to the right, played a bit through the middle. I think if he'd have stayed at City with Haaland, I think he'd have done really well. I think he'd have had a really good season. Obviously, I'd sooner he'd have gone abroad and not
That's what I thought he would do one day, man.
Rival. But at the end of the day, if he wanted to go, he wanted to go. And I just don't, in my opinion, I don't think Chelsea necessarily, on what I've just said about the striker situation, I don't think Chelsea's necessarily the best move for him. I think he'll get plenty of game time at Chelsea, but I just do think he plays better in a system that has a striker next to him. And Chelsea, obviously, Lukaku has gone over to Inter Milan. They won't play with, if they do play with a striker, it'll be either Havertz in that centre forward role or maybe Werner. But again, neither of them are traditional strikers. So yeah, it was a weird one. I didn't want to lose either of them. I was more upset that Jesus went. I won't lie. I was more upset about Jesus going than I was Sterling. Just I think on the basis that I feel like Jesus as a player, but as a person as much as a player, was quite a big figure in that City dressing room and quite a likable character. I'm not saying Sterling isn't likable. I just think the affinity between City and Jesus was a bit stronger than that.
It was a bit stronger, yeah.
Between City and Sterling. And then the same with Zinchenko. I was gutted that Zinchenko left. I was absolutely gutted. I love Zinchenko. He's just he's a tremendous person as much as he's a footballer. But he's another one like Jesus. I understand him moving on. At Arsenal, he's going to get more minutes in that left back role. He'll probably get more minutes in the centre.
I want him to play centre mid as much as left back, if I'm honest.
He's a very, very good footballer, Zinchenko. I don't think people realise technically how good he actually is with the ball at his feet. And I think he'll do very well at Arsenal. Him and Jesus have that relationship from City, having played together at City. And again, like I say, they played under Arteta. They know the way that Arteta plays football, because it's very similar to the way Guardiola plays football. And I think he's another very smart signing. But again, like I said with Jesus, I understand Zinchenko moving on. And I don't think either player. I've said it on Twitter as well. I think both Zinchenko and Jesus, both City and Arsenal, got a good deal on both players. Like, we get 45 million quid for Jesus.
Yeah, 1 year left on his deal as well. Good.
Yeah, we made 20 million on him. Same with 30 million or 35 million for Zinchenko. We paid
peanuts for him, like a
we brought him in. And for both Jesus and Zinchenko were key signings for Arsenal for what you needed going into the season. We get some good money back for a couple of players who were coming towards the end of the contract, wanted to move on anyway. So I think for everyone involved, both deals are really good. And I genuinely think Zinchenko could be a very, very important player for Arsenal next season, whether that's as a left back or as a central midfielder. He's got the capabilities to really solidify whichever role he's given.
Like you said, man, I mean, I think with Zinchenko, whether it's left back, centre mid, I think if I'm him, naturally, I want to buy trade a centre mid. You know, it was a relationship of convenience at City. There was an opportunity, he grabbed it with both hands. So if I ask him, which I can't, I'm pretty sure he wants to play in midfield. But I just think just being able to play game time, he didn't have that many starts and things like that. So I think there is that. I echo what you said about mentality, about ability. There's just so much he could rub up on this young squad for our players and things like that. I'm keen to see both of them kind of step into their own rights now, because when I look at it for Brazil and City, if I'm harsh, you know, you're a well-renowned squad player. You know, for Jesus, Pep and the Brazil gaffer don't exactly mention goals. They mention all the other stuff, which I'm happy for, but you need to come into your own right and score goals. For Zinchenko, you know, I want you to come here and say, listen, I can accept maybe not playing at City. Arsenal finished fifth. You should fancy your chances, whether that's at left back and centre mid, and kind of develop. Obviously, you've watched them week in, week out, and you know more about them than I can possibly know at this moment in time. What would you say are Zinchenko and Jesus' weaknesses?
I think Jesus' weakness, what I think many City fans would say, is that he's been spells where he's just not particularly clinical, in that he would take sort of 2 or 3 chances to score a goal. But I think that's something that was maybe he fell victim to the way that City played, in that a lot of players create a lot of chances and you don't get as many chances at City as you may do playing as an out-and-out striker at an Arsenal. And I think he's very much a confidence player, Jesus. I think when he gets a run of games, he'll score in sort of 4 or 5 games in a row. And then if he found himself out of the team because of just the way Pep rotates, he then comes back into the team and struggles to get going again. Whereas I think at Arsenal, they'll get more consistent game time. And I think that won't be as much of an issue. Zinchenko, Zinchenko's only real weakness, I would say, is that defensively he's not as strong as other left backs, but he's not a left back. So it's kind of a harsh criticism to put against him because he's not a bad defender, but he's just not as good as maybe some of the other left backs in the Premier League at the defensive duties. But he counteracts that with his ability on the ball. And I think, again, for the way that Arsenal play football, because it is so similar to City, if he is played as a left back, I think he'll play that similar Cancelo role where you'll see him dropping into the midfield quite a lot and collecting the ball and dictating the play. And he does have the ability to do that. I think at any other Premier League team, anyone outside the top 4, he starts in the midfield for any of the squads, or anyone outside of sort of the top 4 or 5. And I think at Arsenal, if he gets the opportunity to play midfield, he'll be very effective there. But if I had to pick a weakness for him, it would be his defensive. Again, it sounds bad to say because he's not a bad defender. He's just not a defender. So
he's not just that's not him. By
the expectation levels of a left back for Zinchenko are probably too high, considering he isn't a left back. So yeah, that would be a weakness, but it's not a weakness that I'd worry about as an Arsenal fan. It's something that is not something that he's not going to ship. You're not going to ship loads of goals down your left hand side because Zinchenko's playing at left back. But his ability getting forward means he does sometimes find himself a little bit high up the pitch, and then you're a bit short-sided down that left-hand side.
I mean, you said it there, and I think that's the only. I wouldn't say I'm concerned because, as you said, the man's not a defender by trade. He's had to play there. He's obviously picked up a lot of things. If we was playing, whoever plays on the right hand side for you lot or Salah or someone like that, I'd want Tierney there every day of the week because he's more of a left back. But as you said, progressing the ball, dropping into midfield, that's been an issue of ours. It sounds criminal to say, but Arsenal struggle to create goals. And now with him, with Odegaard, with Jesus, with Fabio Vieira, with all of these guys, we should be able to do that. And I think last season we saw with Tomiyasu how he kind of drifts into midfield. I think Zinchenko will do that. I was very encouraged with the way Arteta was speaking about him. Like, in fact, the main thing was mentality. It's almost like he's getting his lieutenants, people he can trust. And for me, you know, on the best of days, you've got your squad now. You've got players that you actively know. If you can improve them, you know, they're early 20s, mid 20s. There's resale value. They can obviously help us do things. What do you make of the mentality of Jesus Zinchenko in relation to bringing some of that to Arsenal? Because I don't know where I stand in that. I think they've obviously got elite mentality and things like that, but it's like going into a workplace. You know, if you have all the ideas in the world, but your other colleagues aren't necessarily serious or share the same thing as you, which I'm not saying Arsenal don't, then it kind of doesn't really matter, does it? Really?
No, exactly. Like I've already said it about both of them. Jesus' mentality on the football pitch is incredible. He's one of the probably the most hardworking, maybe alongside Bernardo Silva at City, that I've seen in recent years. In that he chases every lost cause. He's committed to the cause with everything he does. And I think with Zinchenko, you only need to look at what the man's been through in the past 12 months on a personal front for him to deal with everything he's had to deal with with what's been going on with Ukraine and with his personal life, and to still be able to put himself forward and to come on. Essentially, if Zinchenko doesn't come on the pitch against Aston Villa, City don't win the league. He was one of those himself. Obviously, Sterling came on and Gundogan. Those three substitutes changed the game for us on that final day. And for someone to have the ability to be able to block out what's going on away from the football pitch and to be able to step on the football pitch and still give 100% every time he plays is insane. And I think one thing I will say about Arsenal, which I think a kind of a bit of a tangent really, is that I'm just really glad that to see the way that Arteta's vision is starting to pay off and that he was given the time that he needed at Arsenal. I think a lot of people forget in City's first season under Guardiola, we had an aging squad. We had a squad that wasn't Guardiola's squad, and we just scraped fourth and made the Champions League. And people saying, "Oh, Guardiola's not got it. He can't do it in the Prem, this, that, and the other." And
how did that work out?
You see what he's done on the back of that. And I think Arteta was put in a similar situation, that he took over a squad that wasn't his squad. He didn't have the players that he needed. He didn't get off to the best start. And you stuck with him and you've seen those, you're reaping the rewards now. I think Ramsdale this season had a great season again in terms of his ability with his feet, his ability the way he distributes the ball. Having Zinchenko there to link up with him and to find the gaps and all of that. And obviously, he's bringing in players now that fit the way that Arteta wants to play football. And I genuinely think you guys will have a really good season this year.
Like you said, man, that's what I think he's. I don't know any other way to put it than he's bringing in players that get it. I do think there's certain things the manager can have all the ideas, but the players have to be of a certain mentality. And like you said, with Zinchenko's background, what he's gone through, and then obviously Sprinkle City, the same with Jesus. There's a sense of urgency. Like you lot, these lot are in their mid-20s. You lot have a fetish for winning trophies. You know, I think Zinchenko's was 110. He's not. Yeah. He's going to want to win more in it, and I want that to rub on the team. Really,
this is it. It's bringing in winners like. Arsenal obviously have won plenty of trophies as a club. However, in your current squad, you've not got many players who have that mentality and that knowledge of winning trophies on a consistent basis. And Jesus and Zinchenko have both been at City for enough time now.
Players in that squad as well.
Exactly. Yeah, to senior players in the squad to see how they see behind the scenes. Even if maybe Zinchenko doesn't start every week, he's still a key member of that squad. Off the pitch, in the changing room, he knows these two players are coming in, knowing how to win trophies, and bringing in players with that mentality. Players will feed off of that. Players will get that boost off having winners in their squad, and that is something that you can't buy. That you can't buy a player.
Put a price on it, man.
You either have it or you don't. And the fact that they've come from a very successful City squad into an Arsenal squad who are on the up, who have got a lot of young players who. Obviously, are coming into sort of the early stages of their serious careers, and to have them winners around them to teach them what they know, and to in those games where maybe you're at half time, you're struggling, you draw, and you should be winning, bringing in those players who go, look, we can do this. We know that we're capable of getting the job done and winning these games. I think is such a beneficial trait to have, and such an important thing to have in your changing room. And I think, like I say, Jesus and Zinchenko coming in will offer that to Arsenal. And they will sort of your younger lads, your Smith Rowes, your Martinellis, these players who are very, very good footballers, but haven't enjoyed that taste of winning silverware and having that success. Will get that with Zinchenko and Jesus coming in.
And like you said, man, you said earlier, teams normally a reflection of their manager. And I think when I look at Arsenal, it should be young, hungry with a point to prove. As much as I like Arteta and he has won a couple of trophies for Arsenal, he's not really a world-renowned name in football. And I don't want to say Jesus is not, because people know him and Zinchenko know him as well, but it's people know Zinchenko, but it's almost like you draw a line with the City thing and be kind of noticed in your own right, be noticed as this Brazil number 9 striker sort of guy. So yeah, exactly. I hope that is it. My last question to you would be, obviously, what have you actually, well, in fact, you've kind of answered what you've made of Arteta. Do you think it's top 4 or bust for Arteta? Because as much as I like him and as much as I think there's many layers and there's things he can be blamed for and things he can't, I kind of have to go back to, it is a results-driven business. Money's been spent, a new deal's been given. It's not like Emre, rightly so, because I do think Arteta is better than him for us in that you're a manager now. With great power, surely has to come great responsibility. So what do you think is it? Do you think it's top 4 or bust for Arteta necessarily?
I think it's getting close to that point. I think, obviously, it looked like Arsenal were going to make the top 4 last season. It didn't happen. There was a sort of a lull towards the end of the season, which, what wasn't ideal. However, like you say, you, as a squad, have the capability of making the top 4. If it wasn't for that lull towards the end of the year, you would have made the top 4 last year. You brought in players who only make your squad better. I think if you can bring in another holding midfielder who's like a top quality holding midfielder, I think top 4 has to be a must. But yeah, I think you're capable of. I think I look at the teams in and around the top 4 this year, and I'd say obviously I'd expect that it'd be City and Liverpool will remain the top.
Yeah, everyone can get that.
And then you'd say it's realistically between Spurs, Chelsea, United, and Arsenal. You'd expect to be the other 2 teams challenging for the top 4. And I think when you look at the squads, and I personally have Spurs and Arsenal finishing in 3rd and 4th. I can't call the difference between the 2, but I think Arsenal are getting progressively better year on year. And I think it's got to the point now where I think this season, if Arsenal don't make the top 4 and don't win a trophy, then I think you've got to start to question how far can Arteta take this team.
That's it.
It's not that you're not playing well, but it's going to get to a point where we're playing well, but how many years can we consistently finish 5th?
Yeah, because then you either go up or you go down.
So I think realistically for Arsenal this year, I'd say either you've got to make the top 4, or if you don't make the top 4, win the Europa League or win the FA Cup. If you win a major trophy and finish 5th, I don't think that's a bad season.
That can get him a blah, yeah.
You've got to have. There's got to be some form of physical success for Arsenal this year, whether that be top 4 in Champions League or winning a major trophy. I think either one of them would do. But then the year after that, it's then got to be top 4. If you don't make top 4 this year and you win the FA Cup or you win the Europa League, I mean, Europa League's the same difference to get you into the Champions League anyway. But it's then got to be a place where you're going into the season expecting to make top 4 rather than questioning, can we make top 4? But I genuinely think Arsenal will surprise a few this year. I think they'll have a better season than people are expecting. I think the squad's young, the squad's hungry. You've spent very well. The business that you've done has been very impressive. And yeah, I think Arteta's raring to go with that squad. And yeah, if that pre-season friendly against Chelsea is anything to go by, then I think you guys are looking all right. So yeah, it'll be an interesting season for Arsenal this year.
Hopefully, man, there'll be many twists and turns, but hopefully we end up fourth, man. Tom, I can't lie, it's been a fantastic, just over 30 minutes. It's been fantastic. We've spoken Arsenal, City. You know, it's been fantastic to pick your brains. Before I let you go, Tom, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, just Twitter's the main place. I think I've got my tag on it. It's Tom Young SJ on Twitter. A lot of my tweets are centered around City. I will warn you in advance if you are going to come and find me on there.
Liverpool fans don't follow
me. A lot of City content on there, but yeah. That's the best place to find me. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you ever need any City brains on again, I'd love to come back and have a chat again sometime.
No, man, the door's always open, man. This has been fantastic. Like I said, this is why I messaged you, because I knew I was going to get the answers that me and a lot of Arsenal players, I wish I was an Arsenal player, Arsenal fans, can't get, man. So yeah, Tom, man, obviously when this is released on YouTube, if you're listening to this at this moment in time, his information will be in the description. So if you can't be bothered to obviously, type it yourself, just copy and paste the description on Twitter and it's all there, man. But yeah, Tom, man, I've kind of pressed you for time. I'm going to let you get out of it. Thank you for doing this, my guy.
Cheers, man. It's been a pleasure. Like I say, anytime, if you ever want me back, I'm more than happy to come back again. So yeah, lovely chatting to you, man.
Definitely will have you. People, hit the like button, follow Tom, and yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, but we're going to love and leave you. Peace, people.
Always just that active red light, defending.
I've been given